Well, good day, my friends. It's your old pal Jordan the Lion. How are you all doing today? I hope you said great. Today we're coming to you from Tampico, Illinois, and I'm gonna show you where, in the middle of a blizzard, one of the presidents of the United States was born in this tiny little town of 800. Daze with Jordan the Lion and you all, it begins right now. So right now we're looking at a mural of Ronald Reagan and his history. You can see him as the Gipper up here. Also played football for Eureka College. Then we have his presidency down here. Of course, Ron and Nancy. And then up top, when he was an announcer for the Quad Cities Cubs team here. And then the family, 1914. But you'll notice right in the center, it says, born February 6th, 1911, right here in town. And when they mean right here, they mean right over here. The family actually lived right over there. His mother and father moved to this town, and his father worked in this store. It was a dry goods store at the time called Pitney, and it was said that his father had a bit of a drinking problem, and so his mother wanted to get him out of their hometown where they met, to get him away from his brother, who was kind of a bad influence, I guess. So he ended up getting a job here, and even though it's a small population now of 800, apparently at the time this was kind of a bustling town, and so there were a couple of stores here, and his father was, with that problem of drinking, would eventually move them kind of all over Illinois. But Ronald was actually born, and his brother, in the apartment right over there. Here's a historic plaque stating that Ronald Reagan, because of him, they named this section of town, this district, the Main Street Historic District, is named to the Historic Register of National Places. Now at the time, it was actually a grocery down here, and they were living above it. And apparently there was a grocer and a baker, and the grocer family decided to live above the business, but the baker had a separate residence, so the Reagans were able to rent that section. And that is what is upstairs right over there. You can see they have a giant sign up there that says the birthplace of President Ronald Reagan. He was literally born on that second floor. And what's crazy is they have this amazing story where the day before he was elected, a double rainbow shined on the apartment building. Isn't that crazy? Now, I do believe you can take a tour. You can see right there, it says birthplace. After the grocer left, it became the bank, so that's why there's a bank sign there. But this door right here was actually where he was born, right up those stairs. How cool. Here's a 10-pound baby. It says, whatever else history may say about me, when I'm gone, I hope it will record that I appealed to your best hopes, not your worst fears, to your confidence rather than your doubts. My dream is that you will travel the road ahead with liberty's lamp guiding your steps and opportunity's arms steadying your way. And I believe the tour starts inside here.
At the time he was born, this was a grocery store. The building next door was a bakery. Bakery moved out and the bank moved in. The bank has been completely restored with all the original fixtures as when it was a working bank in the early 1900s. And the upstairs apartment has been restored to look very much like it was when the Reagan family was living there.
Excellent.
None of the things upstairs are the Reagans,
yeah,
but it's typical of what they had. This is our brochure, and you see the rainbow.
Yeah.
November 3rd, 1980, that rainbow appeared right above where he was born. The next day was election day.
Yeah.
And We sent that picture to him. He kept it in his office at the White House all the time he served as president.
That's amazing.
And when he looked at it, he said, you know, it looks like there's two. You think that means 2 terms?
Oh,
And
yeah.
it turned out to be. That came true as well.
Where little Dutch was born.
Think about all these stairs, carrying your children, carrying your groceries or whatever.
Water.
Water, yes, because they did not have running water.
Wow.
Well, as I mentioned, none of the things are the Reagans, but it's typical. They had their heating stoves. They had electricity. They had their party line telephone, the phone you had to share with your neighbors. The skylight was in place. And
yeah.
it was screened also. And somehow or other they were able to open it and shut it for ventilation in the summertime. Brings a lot of light in the winter. But they did not have running water, so they had to go downstairs out back for the pump in the outhouse. It has 3 bedrooms, and they all have closets. And that was unusual in the early days, because any room that was built, regardless of its size, was taxed. And so that's why often in the older houses you don't see closets.
That makes sense.
Yeah. It rented for $10 a month, and Jack Reagan was making $1 a day as a clerk across the street. Jack and Nell, Ronald's parents, had come from Fulton, Illinois. Fulton is located about 40 miles west of here. It's on the Mississippi, and it's a Dutch community. And neither Jack nor Nell were of Dutch heritage, but that's where they grew up. They worked together in a store over there, and after they were married, they learned that Tampico was a growing, prosperous community, and so they moved over here, and he went to work for Mr. Pitney in the Pitney store across the street. It was a general store, and Jack was an excellent salesman for Mr. Pitney. And I don't know, did I mention he made $10? He made $1 a day, and the rent for the apartment was $10 a month. But Nell was very talented. She was an extremely good seamstress. She took on in sewing, mending, laundry, ironing, and things like that. She taught piano and voice and elocution, and was just all around very talented, lovely lady. This is a picture of her, Neil, his older brother, and Ronald. He learned to ride horseback when he was here. He had classmates who lived right outside of town that had horses, fell in love with them. This was actually taken in Dixon, but you see his glasses. He had very poor eyesight and was among the first people to start using contact lenses.
Oh, wow.
I like this picture of him because he was just a little over 3 years old, but he's already got his American flag showing his early patriotism. Now, the canal just east of town, which you would have come over, that is where he learned to swim. As a young boy, the businessmen here in town would find different things for the kids to do, and one thing they was take them out to the canal and teach them to swim. And that's where he learned all about that before he got to Dixon in the Rock River. So that's him. That's his brother, his dad and mother. They're getting ready to go swimming.
Wow. Did his mother by any chance rent out rooms here? Because I know you said there were 3 rooms and there were only 4 of them.
No, actually, no. They could shut this part of the apartment off to conserve the heat in the winter.
Okay.
And so there's an extra spare bedroom in there. She was such a good lady. She could have possibly found someone coming through that wasn't able to stay in the hotel or something. And
Yeah.
as good a Christian as she was, she could have possibly brought someone on in and given them a room.
Okay.
It's hard to tell on that. This is taken down in our park, and there used to be this Civil War cannon. It seemed to be a pretty good place for people to get their picture taken. That's his mother in the white, and her sisters there. That Civil War cannon later went to a scrap drive.
Oh.
Now this is the Wilson family, Ronald's mother's family. And here's his mother and dad, and her sisters and brother. Now this is Ronald. As a child, throughout his whole life, he had this particular habit of having his hand on his chin.
I've noticed that in all the photos, yeah.
Yes, we have a lot of pictures, whatever age, from little on up through adult. And so then his brother is holding the child. This is Ronald, this is his brother, those two are cousins. This is one of the times he and his mother were back. And of course, here's Jane Wyman, his first wife. He and Jane were in 8 movies together, and then he and Nancy were just in 1 movie together. This is the Stereopticon, which is 3D pictures, if you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Very cool.
And their advertisement said that you could see the world from your parlor. And so the people could order pictures taken at all different places. His mother was a very religious lady, worked with the church a lot, did all kinds of good deeds, and her Bible was used in both. I didn't think about this, but both the 2 inaugurals as a governor,
Yeah.
as well as the 2 inaugurals as
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And her favorite Bible verse was the 7th chapter, 14th verse of 2nd Chronicles. And we seem to hear that every so often. She had written in the margin of the Bible that it's the most wonderful verse for the healing of nations. It's the bedroom where he was born.
Wow.
About 6 o'clock in the morning on February 6th, 1911. We had a huge snowstorm the night before. The trains couldn't run because the drifts were so high. But Dr. Terry and a midwife were able to be here because Dr. Terry's office was on the corner down here, and the family lived upstairs. So all he had to do was try to find his way down the sidewalk to get here. But it was a very difficult birth, and he weighed over 10 pounds. When his dad saw him, he said he makes a heck of a lot of noise for a fat little Dutchman. And coming, even though they weren't of Dutch heritage, they came from the Dutch community, and he loved to be called Dutch. It was so much more masculine than Ronald, he thought.
Yeah, I can see that.
So that was it.
Wow.
Now, as I mentioned, none of the things in here are the Reagans, but it's typical. These are the original floors and woodwork. Here in the dining room, as they were restoring this, they went down 5 layers of wallpaper and found this pattern and had it duplicated because they were the first people to occupy the apartment after it was put together. So as I said, that was the spare bedroom. This was actually Jack and Nell's bedroom. Now she wasn't, if you go in, you'll see the skylight is there as well. She wasn't real keen about it in the bedroom.
Oh yeah, right up
She
here.
didn't like being woken in the middle of the night by a thunderstorm or something.
Yeah.
So that's a pantry. Actually, it was called a butler's pantry. Now, of course, they did not have butlers or anything, but the concept was that if these doors were shut, then the cook would do her cooking. She would carry the food in there,
Yeah.
and then the butler would pick it up and serve the family.
What was the population like at the time, would
Around
you guess?
1,200 or so. We were busier and more people around. And one of the reasons is they were building the canal.
Oh, right,
So a
right.
lot of the workers came here. Maybe they brought their families.
Yeah,
and
that makes
so
a lot of
that,
sense.
Besides, farming is the main industry, but
Yeah.
we had 3 doctors and a dentist and all kinds of activities for people. Of course, this is the party line telephone. They'd ring the operator, and they would listen here and talk here. Sometimes you had 6 or 7 different families sharing the same line, and so they'd have to take turns and always check before they started to ring the operator to make sure somebody else wasn't talking at the time. The cook stove, it's missing its reservoir. That would have been a pan hooked on here where they would heat the water. And these stones, they would hold the heat for a long while. They could warm their beds, or they could take it on a buggy ride and kind of help keep them a little warm.
Right.
The irons, as they were using these, they'd get the heat, of course, from the stove, and then as one cooled down, then they would just rotate them. And this would hold matches. It would not be sitting on the top of the stove.
Yeah.
Hold matches where you could get to it. And they could use cobs or wood, coal, whatever, for the heat. And they had these cupboards. Kept water in these green bottles. The Pitney's, the rolling pin is from the Pitney store, where
Oh.
Jack Reagan always worked.
Wow.
And the White House cookbook has some of the first president's wives' recipes in that. Since they did not have running water, this was called a dry sink. So they would have to carry the water in, do whatever they needed to with it, and then carry the waste back out.
Is that a cherry picker?
Hey, you got it without my
Is it?
asking. It's a pitter.
I just saw one like a few weeks ago, and I'd never seen one before, and I'm like, now
Okay,
all of a sudden I recognize it.
Well, good for you. I have a lot of fun with this, trying to have people try to.
Oh, I'm
figure out
sorry.
what it is. No, that's great because I've been doing this for quite a long while, and I've had such fun with the different answers I got. And this year, you weren't the only one that knew it right away. I've had some other people that
Well, you just never see them anymore. So when you see like these era houses, it's like it's surprising to me. But it was in Galena at President Grant's house, so it makes sense because the cherries must be pretty big around here.
At that time, I don't know as we have as many now, but at that time they were. So yes, but it's a double cherry bitter. So you'd have bowls under here, and you'd drop the cherries in and push the pits out, and then when it came back, then the cherries would go down that little trough. So it's a clever deal. I enjoy it.
Did President Reagan ever get to come back and see this? He did? Oh,
He was here in
neat.
1992.
That's awesome. I love that.
He and Nancy came back on Mother's Day 1992, and he had they attended church where he and his mother had gone, and then we had a famous Dutch diner here at the time.
Oh.
And so we had lunch at the Dutch diner, and then came down here for a tour.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
So of course this is the ice box. They got the ice out of the canal and the drainage ditches, and then the block of ice would go in here, and then there's a drain there at the bottom, and so it would drain as it melted, would go through that drain into a pan under here, and they had to keep that pan empty so it didn't run all over the
Oh, yeah.
floor and every place. So inside here, this is where the things would keep cool. And this is a Chapin's Tampico Creamery.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes, they were. The creamery was very well known for, of course, you could get milk and cream, but they made butter, and their cheese was very, very well known. They had trucks that took it to Wisconsin.
Oh, wow.
So it was really good.
Yeah, if you're bringing it into Wisconsin.
Correct, because Wisconsin is the cheese place. This is their summer kitchen. So when it was really hot, this is the eastern exposure, so it's the coolest part of the apartment.
Yeah, it is.
They could do the cooking out here on the kerosene stove instead of firing up the cook stove. And I assume that not only would they cook out here, they could have slept out here, they could have ate out
Oh,
here.
absolutely. Yeah.
I believe it might have been screened. It wasn't enclosed like this at the time. And of course, then this is the sign for the ice can. They'd hang this in the window, and whatever number was on top, as he came down the alley, he would know what their order was by checking what the number was.
Oh, wow. I've never seen one of those.
Okay, so that's pretty handy for him. He didn't have to get on the phone and call and say, what do you need? So that worked out. And of course, these are the ice tongs that he could lift the ice with and bring it up. Now the funeral home is next door. It's always been next door, and still is. It's a working nice funeral home now as well. But in the back, they had a shop where they made furniture and such. So we have an ad in our early weekly newspaper from there, and it said undertaking was their specialty, because they also sold phonographs, rugs, linoleum, and
But they really specialized in the burying.
Yes. So that picture was taken in the shop of the funeral home.
Oh.
And if you notice that buggy, we're not absolutely certain that the buggy was made there, but it's very similar to the picture.
Yeah.
Sure is. That is really neat.
We weren't able to get a true outhouse, but we just got a little building out there to represent the fact that that's what they had to do if they needed to go to the bathroom. They'd have to go downstairs and go out there, and in the middle of the night or whatever, middle of winter.
Yeah, that would have been cold.
Yes, yes.
Oh my God.
And so then they had a pump located someplace with a well so that they could bring the water in from there too. Now Jack was Irish Catholic and attended our Catholic church. If you look over there, you can see the spire of the Catholic church. It's one of the most beautiful Catholic churches in northern Illinois.
Yeah.
It's a lot of marble statuary and stained glass windows. Now Nell, of course, was Protestant and attended the Church of Christ. And that church, the Catholics still are active, but the Church of Christ closed a couple years ago, and it's located over the building's still over that way. But,
The building's still there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now there are 13 buildings on Main Street that are on the National Register because of the particular architecture.
Oh, wow.
And what they would do is they put a building up, and then they put the next building up and just use a common wall. The interesting thing when they did these is they left the windows in.
Huh.
So there are three windows, that join the two apartments.
Oh, really? Wow.
And so fortunately,
A little creepy.
yeah, that apartment is above the grocery store. And Mr. Seymour had the grocery store, and his daughter and family lived upstairs. Well, fortunately, Daisy was a good friend of Nell. And so, it's good to have good friends when you're this close in
Yeah, yeah.
by a window. So the ladies didn't have to use the stairs to visit with each other. They could just come to the
Crawl through the window.
And they also had built-in babysitters.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
So as a baby, Ronald Reagan was handed through this window.
Wow.
When he visited us in 1992, he climbed through the window. So this is our famous Reagan window.
That is awesome. I love that.
So, guess what?
We get to crawl through it.
Sure, sure. But be very careful of your head. So
Okay.
you don't bump.
Pretty cool.
So this is the other apartment above the grocery store. As Mr. and Mrs. Nicely, who are the ones responsible for putting all this together, working there, they use this as their office. And so there's a lot of research materials here, and they did a lot of that, and just had some extra things that they would store in here.
That's so great of them to turn this into an attraction.
It is. And if you notice the windows there, that goes into the funeral home.
Oh, wow. There's a stairwell right outside of that.
Yeah. So this is a little bit larger than that one, and the decor is a little more modern. It's not up to date, but it's still it was used
Pretty big
in the
piece of space, though.
early 80s, I believe. I think the unique thing is the closet between these two rooms. There, you can go through the closet there and come up.
Oh, nice. So he would have been babysat here.
So the covers and such have newspapers and different articles and things. To be, of course, FFA. He was the FFA advisor as well. So
Oh, okay.
That is the reason for the
Makes sense.
that. And he put his FFA kids to work a lot in helping out getting things here. Among the most notable one is getting that piano up.
Oh, yeah.
I've talked to some of the boys who helped with that.
Utilizing free labor.
Appliances and lawnmowers and such that were down below, and so they lived up here.
Oh, okay.
And,
Look at that carpeting.
yeah, it's really up to date.
Blue and green.
This is what the Pitney store looked like. Jack was an excellent salesman for Mr. Pitney, and he did a lot of buying for him also. But they moved to this house then when he was just about 3 or 4 months old. And this is, down here we have Casey's. Right across from Casey's is a big red house, and this is the next house. It's a privately owned.
Oh, okay.
So it is
But it's still here.
It's
Wow.
right across from the park. And so they were there until he was about 4 years old, and then Mr. Pitney sold his store. So Jack Reagan had to find work someplace else. So they moved to Chicago, and he was worked in a department store in the shoe department because he was specially trained in shoes, fitting and such. They were there a while, and they decided Chicago wasn't quite what they wanted. So they moved to Galesburg, and Galesburg is about 70 miles southwest of here. And they moved to this house, and the house is still there, and there's a sign out in front that said the Reagans had lived there. Then Jack got a little bit better job over at Monmouth. So they moved on over to this place in Monmouth. Excuse me. The boys had gone through a year of school and started back in school over there. Ronald had a photographic memory, and when they tested him for second grade, he was far beyond that, and so he skipped second grade and went into third grade.
Wow.
And then a little while after they'd got there, the man who had bought the store died unexpectedly. So Mr. Pitney bought the store back, the original owner,
Wow.
and called for Jack Reagan to come back and work for him. So he was well known and good for him. So then when they came back, they moved into the apartment above the store across the street. The Pitney store is what the break room is now. It's the building that has the presidential mural on the outside of it.
Right.
And so then they moved up there. And they were there until he was just about 10 years old. And then Mr. Pitney and Mr. Reagan moved to Dixon. And so, of course, while they were in Dixon, the boys finished grade school, finished high school. They both went to Eureka College. After he graduated from college, he went to work for a radio station in Davenport, Iowa. Moved on to WHO in Des Moines and was their sportscaster. And they sent him to California to broadcast the Chicago Cubs spring training. While he was doing that, he was discovered for the movies and was in 53 movies between 1937 and 1964. During all the time that, from the time that he graduated from college and then he got into the movies, the family had lived in Dixon. So that is the boyhood home. But this is where it all began.
Yeah.
California for the burial, the plane came directly over Tampico.
Really?
We had 15 minutes notice. It came down very low, dipped its wings, and then it flew on. And so that picture is over there in the news article is Nancy and Ron and his wife looking out the window as they passed over.
That's
Tampico.
neat. Did they do that in Dixon also, or only here?
Could be in two places.
That's awesome. Very cool story. Pretty spectacular tour, huh?
It was an amazing tour, just seeing all of the houses and how they were connected and just places that he walked, seeing where they had to like blitz down the stairs to go use the bathroom, the extra window where people would go in and out, where he would basically be passed through as a baby. I mean, it's fun to see that.
I love the fact that in both houses, he came back to see them and took the tour just like we did. So he walked the same footsteps again later in life like we did. I think this is one of those inexplainable opportunities. If you get here, it's so much better than the video, but I hope the video does a little bit of justice. We want to go over and see the home that they moved into after this and some other stuff. So his dad worked here at the Pitney store, and as she told us, when they came back to town, when Pitney bought the store back, they actually lived upstairs up here. So this is the house that they moved into after they lived in the apartment that we got to tour. They moved over here, and then Pitney sold the store, so they left town. But then they came back to town and moved into that upper apartment that we showed you. So they told us it was no longer in operation, but this was the Church of Christ that Ronald Reagan, when he was just born, and his mother would come to. His father and his older brother Neil would go to a Catholic church, but Ronald and his mom went here. And then in 1992, when Ronald Reagan and Nancy came back to town to see the birth home, take the tour and everything, they also came and attended church services here. So kind of cool history. They had photos of the president out front attending the service. But unfortunately, it's now closed for the last couple of years. So now we're back to kind of where we were a little bit ago. Right behind this statue, this cannon, it was actually the home that they moved into, the house. This, apparently they used to have a Civil War statue, or I mean a Civil War cannon here in town that sat here, and for years people would come take their photo with it. And so they were telling us at the museum that Ronald used to love and come over here and stand on the cannon. And so they found a picture of a boy back in the time that the Reagans lived here that was standing on this, and it wasn't Ronald Reagan, but since they knew that he loved to stand on it, they ended up making a statue of him here in town. And in typical fashion for his younger days, he had his hand, that fist underneath his chin. Hope you all enjoyed this. Have a great night from Tampico, Illinois, birthplace of Ronald Reagan. Have a good night and goodbye.